So as Teresa mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called CYPHER Learning. We've been in business for at least 10 years. We've got a very popular cloud-hosted learning platform that's used by schools, universities, and businesses around the world. So we've got a lot of experience in what's going on in both business and academia. And so, for example, the entire country of Qatar, their K-12 system is running on the CYPHER platform. And they are really into cutting-edge stuff. McDonald's uses our system for training all the people who run McDonald's franchises. But that's not what today's stuff about. I'm really going to focus almost completely on AI because it is a cool, hot thing. And if you do, by the way, search on YouTube, I was on CNN a couple of weeks ago talking with some of their anchors all about AI and education. So there's clearly worldwide interest in what's going on at the intersection of these two things. Now, before I get into the AI part, I want to give you a little bit about my background. So as you can tell, I've got a British accent. So I was born in the UK. After I did my undergraduate degree in computer science, I came as quickly as I could to the United States. And I went to Dallas, Texas. And I lived in Dallas, Texas for a long time, like 15 years. So it's just down the road from Austin. And when I was in Dallas, Texas, I was working on my master's degree in computer science. And after I got my master's degree, the university said to me, "Hey, Graham, would you like to teach here? Would you like to teach computer science at UT Dallas?" Which is quite funny because I've never taught anyone anything. I mean, at least formally. I didn't have any educational credentials. I'd never taught a class in my life. And I said, "Oh, okay." Because I thought it would be really good fun. And so I still vividly remember teaching my first class on computer science at UT Dallas, and it went incredibly well. I love the energy of the students there. I love the faculty. I like the university. And that kind of took me down this path of the intersection of computer science and education. But when I was a kid, I was always really into robots and Star Trek and electronics and artificial intelligence. And I always loved any kind of TV series that had some AI computer. I always thought that was such a cool concept. But as you know, people have been talking about AI now for 30 years, and everyone's like, it's never going to happen. It's taking so long. And if you gave an interview 2 years ago, you might have said, well, maybe in 20 years' time, we'll have a computer that can understand what you're saying. But then, as you know, it's only about a year ago now, when the ChatGPT 3 came out, and I remember hearing about it through Twitter or something, and I just sat down and say, well, let's try something simple, like what's 2 + 2? 4. Okay, well, that was easy. Tell me a little bit about Dallas, Texas, and it would give me it's like, whoa, it's actually understanding, in quotes, what I'm saying. And then you start, well, let's just say I was going to build a course about this. What would you do? Well, here's a nice outline. And I remember thinking, whoa, this is like the real deal here. And obviously it's not generalized intelligent. It's not like it's not like it's conscious as far as we know, but it's really, really good. And then I remember thinking, because my company's been involved in education and online computing, it's like, well, I guess we're off to the races. What are we going to do about this stuff? So before I show you a little bit about what is possible with AI, because I really do think that the main thing that I hope to introduce you today is what this stuff can do. Because you've never actually seen it, you don't really know. So I remember I was dabbling myself about a year ago, because I'm still involved in the technology of the company. And by the way, we're in 23 countries. We've got like almost 150 people. So it's not like a 2-person shop. But I started playing around with the technology, and then I started getting this very, very strong feeling that I remember having one time before in Dallas. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the time before, and then I'll tell you about AI and education. So as I mentioned, I'm a computer science person, really. And there used to be a way that people build software the old way. And I don't want to get too technical about it, but it was a way to write computer code where you ended up with this massive pile of spaghetti that no one could understand. And it was really, really hard to change the programs once you had started building them. So what used to happen is if you were going to build a system, you'd spend like 6 months analyzing the requirements without writing a single line of code. Then you'd spend 6 months doing the design of the system, but not writing a single line of code. And in the end part, you start writing the code. And that was called the waterfall method. And every company was building software that way. And it was really, really inefficient and slow. But because I was teaching computer science at UT Dallas, I heard about this new thing called object-oriented programming. And you don't have to know anything about this to appreciate the story. So it's basically a completely new way of building software using new languages that are specially designed. But nobody knew about it. I mean, almost nobody. But because I was teaching at UTD and I was teaching programming languages, I had to learn. So I remember being in my apartment, learning this thing. And I started building some software and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to change the way that we build software for sure. And it was this weird feeling. It's like I walk around UT Dallas thinking, I'm the only person in the whole campus who knows about this. This is like incredible. And I had this like low-level buzz going on in my brain the whole like, what am I going to do with this, knowledge? So I started teaching it at UT Dallas, and I had like 100 people in my class at a time. It was amazing because everyone wanted to learn about this brand new way of programming. And sure enough, this is pretty much the only way that people program anymore. But I was right on the like ground zero of that whole revolution. And the reason I mention that story is because I feel exactly the same right now. Like I'm one of the few people in the world who's been using AI in education on a daily basis now for almost a year. And I'm going to show you some things to make my point, but I've got this really like spider sense tingling right now, which is this is going to really change the way that people teach and learn. So, I've almost finished my little intro. I'm not going to do a big commercial of my company, I promise, okay? But I am going to show you a whole bunch of stuff so you can see what this stuff looks like. We ourselves call this strategy AI 360, which means that we can help everyone using AI. We can help the instructors, the L&D teams, we can help the learners, we can help the administrators, we can help the managers, and you get unbelievable cost and time savings. But I'm going to focus today primarily on the L&D side of the equation, about the content, building a course. But I'm going to end up with a little sneak peek at something that's even more mind-blowing, which is the learner side of the equation. So before we get going, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the AIs in general, because I have been using them a long time. And you start to kind of have a feel for how they work and when they make mistakes and when they don't make mistakes, etc. So the system that I'm going to show you today actually uses 3 AIs. It doesn't just use one AI. And some AIs are better at some things than others. Like some are better at creating content. Some are better at finding images. Some are better at generating images. Some are better at videos. And so any system that's going to leverage AI typically will use more than one AI. And it's not going to be, hey, this is how you use it. You open ChatGPT and you type it. No. You don't need to know any of that kind of stuff. So the AIs are behind the scenes working on your behalf, but you've got no idea what they're doing or how they do it. So the first thing is most of these systems are going to use multiple AIs, and the number of AIs is going to increase as time goes by. That's one thing. Second thing, these AIs are massively multilingual, which is kind of weird. So when they trained these AIs on all the data in the internet, they didn't limit them to just English. They were consuming Hindu, Spanish, Chinese, Indian, Brazilian, Portuguese, etc. So what I'm showing you today is going to be in English, simply because that's the only language I speak. But you can actually generate courses in 50 different languages. So I don't want you to think that AIs only can do English, because that's just not the case. Another thing that people talk about is this whole hallucination thing, which is just a nice way of saying makes a mistake. And I think it's quite funny because we tend to hold AIs to a much higher standard than humans, because humans make mistakes all the time. So part of my feeling is like, well, yeah, AIs are really good, but they're not that much better than humans in terms of making mistakes. But I have noticed after generating massive numbers of courses that I've got a very good feel for when they tend to make a mistake. So there's two areas. The first area is when you ask the AI to give you a link to something. And when you ask an AI that, it's because of a misunderstanding about how AIs currently work. So I'll take a step back, tell you a little bit about how they actually do their magic. So what these AIs do, the generative AI ones, is they're trained on a huge amount of data. And they read this data really, really fast. But they don't have photographic memories. They don't go, that's that one page at this URL. That's that page of the URL. They don't do that. What they do is they look for patterns in the data and they extract the structure out of the information. And quite deep structure. It's not like, oh, this letter follows this letter. They will notice, oh, there is this concept of an atomic weight. And this particular atom has this particular atomic weight. They actually extract deep structure. But they don't remember where they came from. So, and it's like if you said, hey, Graham, when did you first learn the word goat? Like, I don't know. I know the word goat because I've seen it a million times, but I don't remember the specific page on the specific book of where I learned the word goat. So it creates this massive amount of knowledge, deep structure. But if you ask it for a link, hey, give me a link to XYZ, it might well get that wrong. So the first thing is, generally speaking, don't ask the AIs, at least the current generation, for a link to anything. But our system never does that, so that never occurs. The second thing that I've noticed is that if you ask it about something that's very, very niche, where there might be only a very small amount of data in the entire world about this thing, then it can get a little bit confused. And I'll give you an example, and then I'm going to go into a show and tell session. So one of my favorite cartoons growing up as a kid was a cartoon called Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds Are Go. And it's a kids program, sci-fi, and there were 5 spacecraft, Thunderbirds 1 through 5. And if you ask ChatGPT, tell me about Thunderbirds 1 through 5, there's tons of information about it, and it gets it absolutely correct. But there was one episode called Thunderbirds 6. And in Thunderbird 6, it was an episode that was designed to mislead the viewers. So they had this big spacecraft, and everyone thought that that was Thunderbird 6. But at the end, there's a little twist, and you find out that Thunderbird 6 was actually this very old vintage World War I biplane that came in and saved the day. So the actual episode was designed to mislead you. So when I asked ChatGPT about Thunderbird 6, it got misled just like a human and told me all about the spaceship. So, but those are the only 2 times I've ever seen it make a mistake. So I think, accuracy perspective, it's really good. And I'm going to tell you what we're doing about improving the accuracy later on in this demo. So that's enough about just the, little bit about my background, how I got into education, why I've got a very strong sense of what's going on, and a little bit of background all about how AIs work. So now what I want to do, and I want to make sure that you guys can see this. If things are going well, can you see the screen which says Austin, Texas on it?
Yes.
Can you see that? Okay. So what I want to do, I want to first give you an example of a course, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how you might use AI to create something similar. So, so this is a course all about Austin, Texas. And anyone who's been in L&D has got a fairly good idea about what courses look like. So they're typically organized into modules, or they call them lessons in academia. And these modules, take the learner through a certain learning path. They're usually sequenced. And then with each module, you put whatever the content is associated with that module. So for example, in the case of Introduction to Austin, Texas, and we built this course to be a full featured course. So you could see, like, here are all the things that, you typically address. So for example, you might have some content. So geographic location of Austin, Texas. So here's a nice intro. Welcome to the first section lesson in Austin, Texas. We're going to explore that. Let's dive in, So here you've got some nice imagery of Austin. You've got a little bit of a background on Austin. If I go to the next page, a little about the Austin climate. And I live in California, thank God. So I don't have to deal with some of the temperature that you guys have anymore. Here's another exploring Austin's history. It goes back to some of the Spanish colonization aspects. But if you're going to do a really nice course, you know, a lot of times you want to introduce various different kinds of assessment. So you might have an essay all about Austin. And, you know, sometimes in businesses, you don't have essays if you just want it to be a quick, you know, click through. Some of our customers are customers like Le Cordon Bleu, which teaches hospitality around the world. And written assessments are actually part of their kind of scoring process. So it's quite nice to have these. And if you do have written assessments, typically you'll have some form of rubric. So, you know, it gives you a structured way to grade an assessment, like, did they do this? Yes, no, insufficient, advanced, etc. So typically for a written assessment, you'll have some kind of rubric. And you might also have a quiz. So I'm just kind of running you through a little bit of the chestnuts of, so here is a whole bunch of questions about, you know, Austin that you might want to use an AI to build. So different kinds of question that you might have. And these days, more and more group projects are being introduced. You know, in the world of business, they typically call them cohorts. So you might have a cohort going through a course. So for example, when I was teaching computer science at Texas Instruments, I would have some content, I would have some videos to show the students, then I would organize them into teams, and I would give them a team assignment, like build a certain bit of software or discuss this amongst yourselves and give a presentation to other people in the team. So you have the concept of individual projects in a course. You have the concept of group projects in a course. So as you can see, if you're going to build a whole course and you want to do something nice like what I'm showing you, then, you know, you hazard a guess, well, there must be a way to use an AI to help with some of this stuff, because you've got picking the images, building the actual assessments, building the question banks, etc. But before I show you how an AI might be able to help to duplicate something like this, I want to show you a few other things that are more advanced. So you may or may not be familiar with the concept of competency-based learning, or some people call it skills-based learning. But the general idea is, if you want to create a personalized experience so that you focus on things that people are weak on and you don't keep on hammering the same stuff that they're already mastered, then what you need to do is you need to create what we call a digital learning profile for each learner. And the digital learning profile ideally is fairly detailed. So for example, let's just say I didn't use competency-based learning and you go through this course in Austin and by the end you've got a score. Congratulations, you got 85 out of 100. But if that's it, I've got no idea which aspects of Austin you mastered and which ones you didn't master, right? It's just like, do you know Austin or not? Yes, no, or somewhere in between. And, you know, that's how a lot of courses were scored in the past, but it's really not ideal. So what is ideal is, before you create the course, you structure it and you say, what are all the things that I'm going to teach? I'm going to teach geography, climate, history, demographics, real estate market, the tech scene, food scene, healthcare. Like, these are all the things that are part of really understanding Austin, Texas. So before you create the course, you create this thing, which is a set of competencies. And you can do this for anything. This can be for soft skills and enterprise. This can be high tech. This can be how to install some new machine. Or in the world of academia, it would be the Common Core math standards or the biology standards. But the general idea is, before you create the content, you try and you break it down into the details. And then ideally what you do, and I'll say right off the bat, most people don't do this because it's like a lot of work, is every single question in every single quiz, you tie it to which particular competency it is assessing. And every single row in every single rubric, you tie to the specific competency that it's measuring. Every single bit of content, you tie it to the competency that it is teaching. So if you really want to get into competency-based learning, there's quite a lot of stuff to do. Now, we actually decided to do this in the course. So if I go into government and politics, if I click on competencies, you'll see that we tied this particular module and the content to these two competencies. And then when I go into a quiz in here, every single one of these things, Austin's government structure is similar to that of a monarchy. Answer, false. At least I hope it's false. And as you can see here, the competency is tied to government structure. So competency-based learning is kind of like one of the most modern teaching methodologies because it opens the door to personalized learning. And personalized learning has been on everyone's lips now for 20 years, but how many people actually do it? Not many. Why? Because it's a lot of work if you really want to do it well. The last thing that we did when preparing the class, to give you an idea about what a really modern class looks like, is you can use things like automation and gamification to jazz it up. So let me give you an example of the gamification. So let's just say you want to gamify this course. And the idea is that you create levels: the Austin novice, explorer, enthusiast, aficionado, Austin expert. And with these levels in this game, you associate points. And then you give people points by doing certain things. So you might be nice and say, I'm going to give you 10 points just for enrolling in this course. And if you do really well at this quiz, I'm going to give you some bonus 30 points. And when you finish module 2, I'm going to give you 100 points. So as you go through the course, you build up these points. And when you hit these particular levels, like when you hit 200 points, you now become Austin novice. And then you can use automation to do stuff like, when you hit this, I'm going to automatically give you this badge. And automation is a general concept. It just says when X happens, do Y. And like in our platform, you can use automation everywhere. When you complete the course, automatically enroll you into the next course. Or when you finish this course, automatically put you into a group. Or when you enroll someone, and if they're in California, then give them a certain badge. You can use automation to do all kinds of stuff. And down here, we actually created some custom badges called Trailblazer, Culture Connoisseur, Foodie. I know food is really big down in Austin. Yum, yum. All the way to the Outdoor Adventurer. So I'm going to talk about the AI just a second. But as you can see, if you want to build a really modern course, there's a lot of work. It's like setting up the competency maps, setting up the modules, creating the content, finding the videos, finding the images, aligning everything to the competencies, building the game, building the badges, set up the automation rules. And, typically people will spend around 400 hours minimum to create a course like this when they do it from scratch. And a typical cost is around between $11,000 to $15,000 per course. So here's the cool part. Every single thing that you saw right now, I built 20 minutes ago. Everything. There wasn't a single human interaction in building anything that I just showed you, which is pretty cool. So right before this presentation, I just went into our site and said, build me a course on Austin, Texas. And I gave it a few hints and a few directions. And 10 minutes later, it did all of this, which is kind of quite amazing to me. So I'm going to go through in a bit more detail about what you would normally do next, because we don't think that this course as is ready to teach. It's at least 80% of the way there, but you're going to want to go in and personalize it, review it, replace images, replace a video, tweak the competencies. You want to make it yours, and you want to make sure it's just the way you want it. But this to me is like a game changer. Like I remember how many hours I spent at UT Dallas building my first course on Unix and C programming, and it was a lot. And because I didn't have that much time before I did the course, I didn't build the whole course and then teach the course, which is the ideal. What I did is I created lesson 1 on like Monday morning, and then Monday evening I taught lesson 1, and then I started quickly building lesson 2 for Friday. So it's like jumping out of an airplane and building the parachute on the way down, or whatever they call it. And I know that a lot of people who are involved in L&D, can be in a similar kind of boat. So I hope just seeing the quality of this thing and seeing the imagery and seeing everything makes you go, that's pretty cool. But how do we do it? So let me show you the process that I used to build this course. And I'm actually going to kick off another course because it's quite good fun. So here's what I did. And I hope that some of this stuff might not show up on your screen because sometimes pop-ups don't show up. So if you can't see this pop-up, which says add course, I'll kind of explain what I'm doing. So I said, add a course, and I'm going to do a good one in Dallas, Texas. By the way, can you see this pop-up or not? I'm curious. Oh, you can. Okay, that's great. So I'm going to build a course in Dallas, Texas, and it says, get assistance from CoPilot. And did you see that little thing slide out on the right? Is that working okay? Okay, great. So here's all you got to do. First of all, you don't have to know anything about AI at all. So you say, what's the topic? It's going to be Dallas, Texas. This could be anything. And it can be really specific. It could be how to deal with climate change in Texas. Doesn't have to be some general topic. Or, I'm a home recording enthusiast. And I said, I want to build a course on how to set up a home studio for someone who's using a Roland Phantom 8 keyboard and a Shure 58 microphone, and it will build a course just for that. Second thing you can do is to decide what kind of persona you want this to be written in the style of. So, for example, if you do it an entertainer, it's going to be a little bit more skewed towards the entertainment side. If you're going to say science enthusiast, it's going to be mentioned more about science and technology in Austin. So you can pick the persona that you want for how it's created. You can select what level of course. If I want it to be any, that means I don't really care, but I might want it to be beginner, introduction to Dallas, or an advanced course on Dallas. I'm going to leave it advanced because I'm kind of curious. The audience. So building it for seniors is different from building it for adults versus young kids, etc. So for example, if you were in first grade and you were using CYPHER for academia, you'd pick young children, and it would change its vocabulary and change the way it explains things, targeting for young people. Teaching style. So direct instruction is where you basically say, here's how you do something. The Socratic method, which doesn't really make any sense for Dallas, but it might make sense for teaching science, is where it asks you questions first, followed by the answer, as opposed to just, here's the information. So we'll leave it direct instruction. You might want a humorous course on Dallas. Let's see how it does there. Additional instructions. Now, this is where it starts getting really cool. Like, I could say here, use a Barbie theme. And throughout the entire course, it's going to do everything in terms of Barbie. Like, imagine you're a Barbie and you want to go shopping. Here's where you might go shopping in Dallas, and it will generate imagery that's like very pinky and, kind of silly. Or if I was teaching a course on the Beatles, I could say, make sure that you mention the song Martha, My Dear. So you can give it additional instructions that the AI will ingest before it starts building your course. I can generate this in Spanish. I can generate this in, Portuguese, whatever you like. I'm going to do it in English here, but it understands a lot of languages. This is a cool one. So I mentioned we use multiple AIs, and, by default, it'll find suggested imagery using a different AI searching on the internet. But if you want to, you can generate synthetic imagery where the images are not taken from the internet. They just build these images from scratch. So amazingly, you see these Austin images in front of you, they are synthetic. These are not taken from the internet. These are actually generated by an AI, which is cool. So if you're worried about, oh, I don't want to scrub these for copyright, just generate them through an AI and then you don't have to worry about it. Custom data is something I'm going to show you in a little bit, but let's just say that you've got your own course already built as a video about Austin, or you've got a PDF, which is your initial course. You can actually upload your course and it will generate a new version of your course based on your data, not generating it from internet data. So this is a really handy thing. If you've got an old video of you and it's like a 1 hour video of you just speaking, and you go, well, I kind of like what I was talking about, but I think it can be done a lot better. And I want to make it competency based, and I want to add quizzes and imageries. You can just upload the video and it will transcribe it, and then it will ingest that transcription. Doesn't share it with anyone, so it's still private, and then it will generate you a brand new course, but extracting all the knowledge from your private course. The competencies, you know, a lot of the time, if you're new to competency-based learning, you'll just say, build me some new competencies from, you know, from this topic. But if you have existing competencies, so let's just say that in your business, you've already got a competency map about, you know, how marketing should behave in trade shows. You can just say existing competencies, select them from some competencies you've already built, and then it will build the course based on those competencies, not based on new ones. So typically, there'll be a lot of flexibility in terms of forcing the AI course to use a certain predefined thing versus generating its own. And for example, in Dallas, Texas, maybe I want a study guide, like it's like a cheat sheet on everything to do with Dallas. I have a glossary of terms, but this particular course, I'll tell you actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to generate a micro-learning course. So micro-learning courses are bite-sized courses that, you know, for every section, there's just an image and a paragraph. They're not like, it's not like a formal course. So I'm going to generate micro-learning because that's really, really nice. And I'm not going to do any quizzes and stuff. I want this to just be an easy to digest Dallas primer, but maybe I will gamify it. So running through, there's fill in the gaps here. I'm filling the blanks for general things about the course, including language and synthetic imagery and micro-learning. Upload your own data if you've got it. Select which competencies you want this course to be aligned to. Tell it how many modules, 10 modules I want. If you want quizzes or assessments, you can add them. In this case, I'm disabling them all. And if you want a game. And what it does, it says this is going to take about 594 credits because this stuff is not free. 594 credits, by the way, is $5. So it's going to build this entire course for you with all these trimmings, all the competency-based stuff for $5. So there we go. It's at work. So we're going to continue chatting, and we'll come back periodically to see how our course on Dallas is doing. But like I say, based on our empirical evidence, it normally takes around 10 minutes to create a course. I want to talk about a few more things, and I'm definitely going to have a Q&A session, and I know there's some chat stuff here, so I will definitely get into it. But I'll just finish up the talking about the Austin course first. So in addition to creating what we think is probably around 80% of the course in about 10 minutes, we also provide a bunch of ways for you to very quickly personalize it. So the first thing is every single thing that it generates, you can edit. It's nothing, it's not like a canned course. So I can go into the geographical location here, and I might say, this image looks pretty good, but, you know, is there a better one? Now, I mentioned that we use different AIs, and one of the AIs tries to find good imagery for your course. And when it's building the course, it doesn't just find one image. It usually finds between 6 and 8 candidate images, and then picks what it thinks is the best one. So if I click here and replace, it'll show me here are some of the other images that I thought might look cool as well. And it's like, oh, I kind of like this nighttime one. So I can just replace it there. This one down here, this is all about unique features. What else did it come up with? Maybe I'll do this one. Now, so you can pick from, so you can just go through and go click, 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 and like change, you know, the human touch. Or you can just go in and completely replace it. So if I go to edit, then I'm down to HTML mode. So this is the underlying source of what it did. And this is its little code. I can just replace that and say, I'm going to upload my own image, thanks. So you can go from anywhere from, hey, it looks great, to I'm going to replace it with this one, to I'm going to remove it and upload whatever I want. And the same thing is true of videos, because it will find videos that it recommends. Let me see if I can find a video, one with a video on it. Come on, video. Oh, this is maybe here. I'll try just for a couple more minutes. Sometimes it is more video, sometimes it's not. I'll try one more, then I'll just give up. Maybe it didn't find any good ones. All right, here we go. So here's one. This is all talking about the role of tech industry, and it found a video about Austin's tech hub transformation. So that's a really nice find that, you know, a human being might have had to search for quite a long time to find that. But if I click replace, you know, here's another one, techs and neighborhoods in Austin. Here's another one, which like is a introduction to the Austin startup scene. So we're not content with just, you know, helping you build the beginning part of the course, the 80% starting point, but we also want to make it a lot easier for you to upgrade various bits and pieces. And we have a lot of things in mind. You'll be able to select a paragraph and say, just redo that paragraph, make it more punchy, make it a bit more, you know, clarify that particular paragraph. And what about hallucinations? So we're soon going to be releasing a very cool feature called AI CrossCheck. So you probably know there's more than one AI, and it's a very competitive market. There's OpenAI, there's Anthropic, there's Stability AI with Imagery, there's the Llama model from Facebook, but they all work a very similar way. So when you enable AI CrossCheck, what it will do is it'll use one AI to build the initial version of the content, and then the second AI will review it, and if it thinks that there might be an inconsistency, aka hallucination, then it will automatically highlight that in a kind of a warning box, so that the human reviewer can come along and go, yeah, that's right, yeah, the AI made a mistake, let me fix it. And the second AI will say, well, I would have written this instead, and you can go, yeah, I prefer the second AI. So, you know, it's not like it's not like we think that humans are out of the loop, because they're certainly not. Like I would have made a whole bunch of changes before I taught this course, but the AIs can streamline a huge amount of the work on your behalf. So a reasonable question is, why does this matter? And what will it do to teaching and learning? So there's the obvious stuff, and then there's the not so obvious stuff. But before I do that, I'm just going to take a look at how the course in Dallas is doing. So I'm going to have a look in my Copilot console here. Course in Dallas, it's been chugging along for about 5 minutes, so it's probably about halfway through. So what it does it in a certain sequence. It's quite methodical. So the first thing that it does is it figures out, what are you going to teach? So these are the various different things it's going to teach about Dallas: social issues, parks and recreation, music, food, arts, etc. So it looks like it's done quite a nice job there. The second thing it does, it creates the outline of the course. So it groups all the competencies into the various modules and what each module is going to teach and the descriptions of the modules. And if you notice, before I clicked on this last time and this time, it actually did more work. So what it's done now, it's created the module outline, and it's starting to create synthetic imagery for each of these things. And if I refresh again, it's done even more. So now it's created the synthetic imagery, and now it's building out the micro-learning content for each of the modules. So if I click on Introduction to Dallas, Texas, it's built three we call them cards. But here's what the card looks like. It's quite nice. So this is micro-learning, bite-sized learning, if you like. Nice image, a little paragraph. Easy to snack on. Then there's Dallas and its significance. hot topics. And once again, if I click replace, and I think this is actually pretty good because Dallas is really well known for biotech. And in fact, UT Dallas has got an amazing biotech center now, which didn't even exist when I was teaching at UT Dallas. So as you can see, it's done a really nice job of building the competencies, the overall course, the synthetic imagery, the cards. I think it still has a couple of things to go because it still has to build out. Oh, here's the glossary. So if you're going to learn all about Dallas, these are the various terms that it's using. Sorry about that. Let me go back to this. And then the last thing it's building out is the study guide. And the study guide is one of my favorites because if you're a learner, you can just print out the study guide and it kind of gives you this high-level summary of everything that was covered in the course, which is what I used to do manually when I was a student at college. I'd always create these kind of like cliff notes, if you like. So as you can see, it's like about I think it's about 7 minutes at this time, and it's built almost the entire course. And if I said build the whole course in Spanish, not only will the content be in Spanish, but it will try and pick imagery that's Spanish and videos that are in Spanish. So it doesn't just do the text, it actually applies like all the cultural stuff based on that as well. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the Austin one because it's nice to have as a placeholder. And then I'm going to have a look through some of the chat stuff at this point because I don't want to get too far ahead. Oh, and it's cool. So the chat part is not actually any questions. It's more like this looks really cool. So guess no questions so far. So what I think I'll do, I'm going to pause because there's more even cooler stuff to talk about, but I'm going to pause just for a second to see if there's any live questions from the audience before I talk into some of the more profound effects of this. And you can either pop a question into chat or you can just kind of unmute and speak out. Looks like no questions so far. Maybe there'll be questions by the end. Oh, sorry, there is a question.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
I'm curious to know if you start creating in this format, and let's say you have an enterprise organization and multiple people are creating different courses, what is the risk of content and this happens to us anyway with Adobe Photostock and using images, but what's the risk of things starting to look the same?
To look the same. So it really depends. If you're using synthetic imagery, then synthesizer imageries will tend to have like a certain kind of look to them. But we're actually addressing that in a few weeks' time because there'll be image instructions. So you can say, I want them to be more modernistic or whatever else, or you can just not use synthetic imagery. And what it will do, it'll use images from the internet, an actual stock photos or whatever else, in which case, at that point, they're not really looking the same at all. So I would say it's pretty minimal if you use images from the internet. They're subject to copyright, of course. So it's not like we give you copyright for all the imagery for free for $5. So if there are certain courses that you're doing that might be very high volume that you're selling, that would be one case where, well, maybe I need to get the copyright for that image. If it's internal training and it's going to be taken by 20 people, I didn't say this, but no one's really going to care if you got an image from the internet and in very small scale. So I would say it's pretty minimal. And by having the ability to do instructions to the image generation, at that point, you can even steer the synthetic imagery in whatever direction you want to. So that's my answer to that one. I wanted to talk. Let's talk a little bit about the results of this. So the first thing is, at a high level, forgetting about education, at a high level, it's quite apparent that a human teamed up with an AI sidekick, if you like, is going to be able to do more than a human without an AI sidekick. I don't think that's particularly controversial. That would be me like saying 20 years ago, a human being that uses the internet will be able to do more than a human who doesn't use the internet. It's kind of obvious to us now. And so human plus AI is going to be greater than human. And so what does that mean in the field of education? Well, it means different things depending on the stakeholders. Like for someone who builds courses, you're going to be able to build quality courses way faster if you use an AI, because it's going to do 80% of the work really, really fast for about $5. So what that allows you, it gives you more time back to do the personalization, to put your twist on things, spend more time inspiring and motivating your learners, and less time on the drudgery aspect of building a course. Because if someone says, hey, Graham, can you build a course all about Austin, Texas? It's like, oh my God, here goes another 400 hours of my personal life down the toilet, you know? Whereas now it's like, hey, I can build a course really quickly. I can get people to review it, get some early review, personalize it, tweak it, reorder it. And maybe I'm done in, say, 20 hours instead of 400. And we gathered some empirical evidence for these numbers. So we just pulled them out of thin air. So we had 40 businesses and universities as early adopters of Copilot version 1. And they had to fill in a pretty extensive survey of before and then after. And we incorporated quite a lot of this feedback into our product for the current version and the next generation. But consistently, people said it would go from, say, 3 months to finish the polished product to less than 1 month. And the reason it's not 10 minutes is because once you've done this, you're going to modify the imagery, you're going to personalize it, you're going to put your personal touch, you're going to review it, you're going to get, student feedback. So it's not like the whole thing is 10 minutes. But getting it from 3 months to less than a month is a major time saver. And same thing, courses used to cost about $10,000 to build. Now an average course is going to cost less than $1,000 to build. So that is another pretty big savings. And I know that L&D departments are usually overburdened, underfinanced, constantly stressed. So we really think that AI can be the friend of an L&D department. That being said, though, regardless of what it means in a particular situation, AI is going to raise the bar in terms of what a really good course should be like. So it's not like, oh, AI can just help me build the same old courses the way I used to, but quicker. Because if you do that, you're going to get left behind compared with people who figure out how to use this AI to raise the bar. So competency-based learning has now become way, way easier to do than it used to be. So people are going to expect courses to have competency-based learning. Having a nice selection of imagery, having quizzes that are tied to competencies. That used to be like incredibly tedious, but now it can be done really, really fast. So it's going to raise people's expectations of what a course looks like. And coming out later next year, there's going to be AI for generating real-time animations, real-time videos, or like Stability AI just released synthetic audio and synthetic music generation. So what does this mean? This means that courses pretty soon are going to be expected to be animated and with a nice soundtrack. And, so it's not like AI lets everyone off the hook. It's going to give a lot more time back, but it's also going to raise the bar in terms of what is now expected of a really good course, which I love. Because if I can build a course with animation and video and a soundtrack and all this stuff, and I can, probably later this year or early next year, Copilot's going to upgrade it to do automated animation and soundtrack as well, which is really cool. So the better the AIs get, the more you can leverage those AIs in your workflow. But here's the more profound thing. And I mention this because of my own experience of the effect of a similar kind of leap in technology, but in the world of computer programming. So you remember at the very beginning, I mentioned that object-oriented programming became this new way to build software where you could build software quicker, but you could make changes way quicker. It's like building a statue, and as opposed to building in concrete, which sets after 5 minutes, you're building it with clay, so you can constantly be molding and making improvements. So because you can build a course in 5 minutes, my own best practice is I build 5 copies of the course before I get going. So I would build 5 copies of a course on Austin, or 5 copies of digital survival skills, or 5 copies on modern icon design, and look at the 5 courses and say which one is the one that I prefer. Because every time you generate a course, it will actually generate it differently, which I think is a feature, not a bug. These AIs are not, I was going to say they're not robots. Well, they kind of are robots, but there's a certain amount of randomness or, in quote, creativity when you build a course. So the competencies are going to be a little bit different. So maybe one of the courses in Dallas is going to mention more about biotech. Maybe another course is going to mention more about the sports legacy in Dallas. So if you can build a whole course in 10 minutes and $5, spend a whopping $25, get 5 versions of the course, and then go, that's the one that really speaks to me. And then archive the other 4, because they've probably got some really good stuff in them, and start with the 5th one and then go from there. And you can use the AI after you've created the course, or you can use the AI on existing course. So for example, in this thing here, I can pop out Copilot and say, I want to add some more modules. I want to add 2 more modules to this course, please. Or I want add a quiz. Or maybe I didn't add a studying guide, now I've changed my mind. Hey, I want to add a study guide to this particular course. So the nice thing is you can upgrade existing courses. You can add competencies to them if you didn't already. You can build courses from your own content, and you can constantly iterate. So for me, in the world of software, they call it rapid iteration. And I think AIs will bring very rapid iteration to course design that really was not practical before, because it took so long to build a course. So I think that's actually the more profound thing. It's going to save people tons of time, tons of money. It'll raise the bar in terms of what is possible in a course, but it will allow you to now really rapidly iterate on a very high quality course. So that's the main stuff about the L&D side, but I'm about to switch gears and show you something even more cool on the learner side. I think the last thing I'm going to mention, though, is we've got a lot of plans for just the content creation side of the house. Because now that an AI can build one course in about 10 minutes, we're going to add the ability to say, I want you to build me an MBA program. Not just one course, but an entire sequence of courses and a learning path and optional branch points, etc. So I can say, hey, build me a computer science program for undergraduate. And that'll take longer. Maybe that'll take 2 hours. But imagine being able to build an entire university undergraduate program in 2 hours. It's like mind-blowing. And like I say, introducing animations and introducing videos and all kinds of cool stuff, we're going to be adding pretty soon into this platform. And there are other people. It's not like we're the only one working on AI. As far as I know, we are by far the most advanced one. So we follow our competitors, and we haven't seen anything even remotely close. And we talk with the analysts, and they haven't seen anything remotely close. But it's obviously possible. So I'm not trying to posture like this is the only way to do it. But it's a very kind of cool moment in time. I'm just checking the chat to see if there's any more questions. Yeah, can you pick and choose between modules in each version? Not currently, but that is something that we're going to be adding. So I think the idea that you can bulk create things, you want to be able to generate multiple versions very quickly, but then tie them all together very quickly. So much like when you see a video, you can say, hey, replace it with a different version of the video or the image. Ideally, if you go into a module, it'll say, well, replace the whole module. And it'll say, well, here are 5 other modules that I created behind the scenes. So I think that's a really good idea, and we do have that in mind. Can you pre-test people? Yes, you can. So we support adaptive learning. So you can have a quiz at the beginning, and then based on the results of the quiz, maybe you hide certain remedial material. Maybe you show them only if they're really, really good, you show them advanced material, and that's all built using automation. Or you could even do that at a higher level, like an undergraduate level. If there were multiple courses, you could say, take a test, and based on the outcome of that test, you don't have to do that remedial course. So not just remedial content, remedial course, but we're now going to unlock this advanced course that you can do. What LLM will this draw information from? So the nice thing about using our system is you don't actually have to know the answer. Currently we use OpenAI, one of the more advanced models in the current version. We're also going to be introducing Claude 2, which is from Anthropic. And we're going to use Claude 2 to scrub the content that comes out of the OpenAI one. But one of the things that we're very aware of is the AI marketplace, the underlying models, is extremely competitive. It's like a multi-billion-dollar marketplace. So the nice thing is anyone building on top of an AI, it's a fantastic thing because the prices are going to go down, the speed's going to go up, the accuracy is going to go up, and that's all going to happen really quickly, like over the next year, let's just say. So I know that, you know, now and again it makes some mistakes. That's going to gradually diminish. You know, the training data is out of date. It only goes up to the end of 2021. My guess is between 3 to 6 months that's going to go away, and it's going to be like up to a week, and then within a year it's going to be up to 5 minutes. So some of these restrictions are like they're teething issues. So we're very aware of them, and we actually say in our product, by the way, AIs can make mistakes. You know, you need to review this thing. The knowledge is only up to date as opposed to the end of 2021. But I'm pretty confident, having gone through many of these technology waves, that these are just small moments in time that will get addressed quite quickly. Can this be exported for hosting? So yes, there's multiple ways to host. There's the old way and there's the new way. So the old way of exporting is through something like Common Cartridge. So Common Cartridge standard is the industry standard for exporting a course that can then be imported into any other system that uses Common Cartridge format. The modern way to do these things is actually, you don't export it at all. You actually use something called LTI. So LTI stands for Learning Tools Interoperability, and it allows a third party to create a tool that's hosted in one place and then inserted into a learning platform. And that includes authentication, single sign-on, so that, for example, you can get an LTI tool that's a virtual reality simulator, and you can embed it into any learning platform that is an LTI consumer. So a majority of learning platforms are LTI consumers. Most people who sell tools are LTI producers. Now, because we anticipated that people are going to want to take this competency-based learning with gamification and all this stuff, many of those features are not supported in a lot of other platforms. Like for example, the Canvas support for gamification is pitiful. Docebo doesn't even support competency-based learning. There's like all these things that you wouldn't be able to have if you exported it and then imported it. But CYPHER platform is the only mainstream platform that is also an LTI provider. What this means is every single course has a URL, and you can take that URL and put it into any platform that supports LTI, and it will embed this entire course into the other learning platform. And the course is actually hosted on CYPHER platform, so you get all the CYPHER benefits of automation, gamification, et cetera, but it will look just like this in the third-party platforms. So you can embed the Austin, Texas course into Docebo or to Blackboard or Canvas, as long as your platform supports LTI. If your platform doesn't even support LTI or Common Cartridge, then unfortunately, it means you've probably got a very old-fashioned platform. See other things here. Where's the data pulled from? So that's really up to you. If you've got an existing data source, like a video or a PDF or a PowerPoint, something like that, then you can tell Copilot, take the data from this private data. If you don't do that, like in the case of Austin, there's nothing secret about Austin, then it will just generate it from what was ingested, basically the sum of human knowledge on the internet. Another question is, how will this impact L&D role moving forward? How to prepare for the overhaul? So I would say, you know, L&D is not going away. I think it's going to make L&D's life more fun, because now you can build the 80% really fast, and then you have a lot more time left over for personalizing it, making adjustments based on culture or your organization. And you'll be able to surprise and delight their users, because a lot of people are like, okay, L&D, can you build this course? And they think, oh my God, this is going to take 6 months. And when it comes back, it's just got the bare bones stuff. I'm like, oh my God, you know, bitch, L&D. Whereas it'll be, hey, L&D, can you do this? And maybe a week later, it's like, well, here's the first version, but please give us feedback. We can easily modify this thing. And then I was like, oh my God, what happened to the L&D group? That's so cool. So L&D role is not going away. You know, this AI needs humans in the loop for reviewing it, for personalizing it, for improving it, for doing all kinds of stuff. But it does mean that you're going to be able to do it way faster. And then hopefully, like I say, surprise and delight the rest of the people in your business who are waiting for that course. Next thing I'm going to show you, this is kind of like the tail end. So I think I've, but I am kind of curious now because I lived in Dallas. I just want to see the study guide for Dallas, and then I'll go to the other one. So here's the Dallas course. It built it for $4.79. Summary, the Dallas experience, Big D. Study guide. So this just tells you a little bit about overview of the economy, politics, culture, healthcare, historical context. So that's quite nice to have as a learner. One last thing, and then I'll show you the really, really cool stuff. I have the I don't know what the word is, the luxury, I guess, the opportunity. You know, I've been using this Copilot more than almost anyone on Earth right now. And a majority of what I've seen on AI and education is pretty basic, like open up ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT, how would you build a course in Dallas? But now that I've been using this on a daily basis, I've got a really good idea about where things are going. So I find myself using this all the time for my own personal learning. So I'm really into physics, for example, and things like particle physics and theory of relativity. And the way that I used to educate myself is I would go onto Google and I would type in theory of relativity, and it would say, there's this video, there's this website, there's Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is so dry, and there's another site, but it's a high school one, doesn't do what I want. It's like, it would take me quite a lot of tedious time finding all the bits and pieces and putting them together in a way that I wanted. And then I thought one day, why am I doing this still? Why didn't I just use Copilot, build me a course on general relativity? And I can say I want an advanced course. I wanted to also mention the speed of light constant, and I wanted to, introduce a lot of videos and just tell it. And then 10 minutes later, it's like I've got this super powered AI research person who's finding all the best materials, condensing it, making it clear, micro learning format, or whatever else. And I've just found this to be the best way for me to learn almost anything at this point. So I've almost stopped using Google for teaching myself, which is, I have to pay attention to this. This is telling me something, Brett. And what it's telling me is that we need to build Copilot for learners. That's what this is telling me. So I'm going to finish up this thing by showing you what's coming next. And let me just find the thing here. I know, I've got to go back to my slide here. Here we go. So now I need to do share screen again from this. Okay. So can you guys all see this slide here? Hopefully. So what you should see is a little thing that says digital marketing in the upper left. So this is a sneak peek at Copilot for Learners that's coming out later this year. And it's actually based on an upgraded version of a user interface that we're working on as well. So here's the general idea, is that we sell a cloud-hosted learning platform to businesses and to schools and universities. And it's generally used primarily for taking traditional courses, either courses that are built by L&D or built by professors at a college, or courses that are part of our seamless integration with LinkedIn or edX or Coursera or GoOne, for example. But let's just say that you log into the learning platform and you want to learn really quickly, how do I deal with a difficult customer support situation involving XYZ? Or I'm about to go into a meeting about marketing. How do I learn about modern icon design? Or basically anything. So what are my choices? It's like, well, I can rummage through LinkedIn Learning to find out whether there's a 1-hour course in this thing, but it's gonna talk in generalities, not my specific. So that's not great. I can, if I'm at a university, I can see, is there a 1-semester course I can enroll and do this? Like, I don't want to take a whole semester to learn this one thing, or I can just go into Google and do it like the old way. Or I can see if L&D can create me a course in this, and maybe they can in the next 6 months. So obviously, none of those are good solutions based on what I just shown you. So what I've already shown you, and hopefully pretty much proven, is that generative AI can do a pretty stunning job of creating high quality, concentrated content in minutes. Now, on the learner side, we don't need to build an actual formal course. There doesn't need to be gamification or any form of assessment or anything like that. The learner wants something, ideally short form, bite-sized, just tell me about this one thing, but with the option of digging deeper if I want to. So in Copilot for Learners, here's what you would see if you typed in, what do you want to learn at the top, and it goes digital marketing. So what do you want to learn is going to be at the top of every single page in our learning platform. And so what do you want to learn? Digital marketing. And in seconds, what it's going to do is by default, show you a short form, targeted, concentrated learning material about digital marketing. And you can customize this. I actually prefer long format. I want beginner, I want advanced. But by default, it's going to generate what you're seeing on the left-hand side of the page. And this, if you like it, great. If that's enough, you're done. If you want a different version, you can click generate new version, and it will generate the whole thing all over again because maybe it wasn't quite right for you. Let's just say that you learn this thing and you think, oh, hang on, what happened there? I moved my mouse by mistake. Okay. And it's pretty good, but you've got some questions. And that's always the frustrating thing. It's like, I almost get it, but what is the difference between pay-per-click and SEO? But if I want to get better at digital marketing, what other topics would you recommend? So you'll notice in the upper left-hand side, there's a button that says AI Export. And we might call this Mentor Me or something. We haven't finished the finalized. And what this will do, it'll open a chat room where you're talking with an expert about digital marketing. So it's kind of boxed in. You can't open it and ask about politics or something. It's going to be, you're talking to an expert about digital marketing, and then you can ask it anything. You can have a conversation with it. So it's essentially like ChatGPT, but more constrained because it's only going to be talking about digital marketing. But you can say, teach me more. And it will know about everything it's shown you so far, so it doesn't repeat itself. Or you can say, what's the difference between this and this? Or you can say, what career would you recommend if I want to get better? So you're going to have instant 24/7 access to an expert in almost anything, which is going to be amazing for schools and universities. So just imagine that pretty soon, virtually anyone with an internet connection will be able to have access to a expert tutor, which is not the case right now in 99.999% of the world. Or if you're interested in quasars, which my 6-year-old son is, you can just, what do you want to learn? Quasars. And you don't have to take a whole course. You'd have to wait for astronomy. You'd have to take a book out of the library. Just quasars tells you all about it. Then in the upper right-hand side, related topics, it'll say neutron stars, black holes, the solar system. So you can kind of binge learn and learn really, really quickly when you're in the zone. And I think especially for kids, that's a really nice thing. Like I would love my son to be able to learn tons of stuff about astronomy in this particular way when he's really in the mood, not when he's forced to and he's being sat in some lecture hall somewhere. Also finding you related courses. So we're not saying traditional courses are now obsolete. We're actually going to show you where they are. So here are some courses in LinkedIn about digital marketing. Here are some courses in Coursera. Here are some courses that your L&D department generated about this topic. We're also going to find you related social groups or put you in touch with related experts in your organization who also might be able to help you with this. But if none of this works and all you want to do is to go into Google, good old Google, you'll notice right next to what you want to learn, it has a little G, and you can click on Google and it will launch a new tab passing in digital marketing. So you can kind of do it the old-fashioned way. So this is like taking generative AI and making it directly available to the learner. And I think this is at least as profound as what we're doing in terms of how to create, traditional courses way faster. And the nice thing about this, if you think about the ultimate goal of learning platforms, is to shorten the time between when you've got there's something you want to learn and when you've learned it, and make that gap as small as possible. And you know that the younger and younger the person, typically the less patience they have. Like, I've got plenty of patience because I grew up as a kid without the internet. So I'm patient. Like, I had to walk down to the public library and check out a book and walk home and sit in my bed and get a bag of candy and read the book. So I'm used to it taking a while to learn something. But our society is getting more and more amped up. And it's like, if I don't get this thing within 5 minutes, just forget it, So the idea is you can use generative AI to introduce people to snack side stuff and then guide them towards deeper versions of that topic. But you can help to reduce that time to just minutes, which I think is like really, really cool. So that's kind of where I wanted to kind of leave things. I will also say, if you are interested in learning more, we set up a special page just for ATD. So you can go to cypherlearning.com/ATD. There's tons of information there. There's videos, there's information about all kinds of stuff. And if anyone's interested in bringing this into their organization, even in our demo, we started the demo by saying, hey, what do you want to build a course on? And then as we're chatting with the demo, you can actually see the course being built. So once again, it's CYPHER Learning, CYPHER Learning.com/ATD. So I'm going to see if there's any more chat messages here. Oops. Yeah, about the info generated, that's from 2021. So, and I don't think there's no large language models that right now that are scrape and keep it up to date, but there's going to be really, really soon. I mean, literally before the end of the year, we might have already solved that particular problem. There are tools out there that you can ask a question and it will use up-to-date knowledge from Google. But that same approach does not work for building courses, unfortunately. Because when you build a course, you need to see the whole big picture all at once to figure out the competencies. But I think that constraint is going to go away really soon because everyone knows about it and everyone wants to get rid of it. Can you draw from your internal knowledge base? Yes. So, well, you can upload content. So assuming you've got a PDF course or it's in a digestible format, you can upload that as part of the Copilot process. The AI mentor system is not currently designed to draw from your knowledge base, but that will happen as well. And we're going to use quite a well-known approach called embedding to allow that. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to suck in your knowledge base, still have it private, and then in the AI mentor be able to answer questions, and that will be actually come from your knowledge base. Can the AI expert feature be integrated into the courses? Yes. Not yet, though. So what we're doing is Copilot 1 is already commercially available. Copilot version 2 is going into early access next week. Copilot 3 will be out by the end of the year. And then early next year, we're going to start cross-fertilizing, if you like, some of these features. So the AI expert can then go into courses, etc. Does CYPHER Learning sell a subscription to tiny businesses? Unfortunately, not. So, I think, I think our typical license starts off at something like 100 to 200 active learners. Unfortunately, the reason that we can't sell a subscription to tiny businesses for like $10 a month is that the cost of providing support would completely eat all the revenue. So we've noticed that anyone who uses CYPHER Learning platform, it's not just a content creation platform, it's a full-blown enterprise strength learning platform that's used by major universities, by large businesses. There's a certain cost of support that goes along with the feature set. And so we have to restrict it down to 100 active learners at the minimum. Otherwise, we would literally just lose money, unfortunately. So I think that's all of the questions answered. So at this point in time, I will say thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. I hope that you've got a pretty good understanding now about what AI is capable of and where things are going. And also that you've seen CYPHER Learning has done an amazing job. So hopefully you'll visit our site one of these days. So thank you so much, everyone. And good luck with everything. Bye.
Thank you.